Hi everyone, welcome to this session about S4hana Cloud Choices. I'm Ben Augustin, Group Community Manager, Team Lead, working for SOA People since 13 years as a logistic consultant. And here is my colleague, Tamas Sirtes. Tamas, can you present yourself, please?
Oh, hi everyone. My name is Tomáš Cirtas. I'm the Group Innovation Director at SOA People. I have 25 years experience with SAP and basically since the beginning of S4HANA, so 2015, that has been my main focus next to the business technology platform. And later today I will talk about the S4HANA cloud.
Okay, thank you, Tamas. Well, that's the agenda of today. So we are going to speak about S4 HANA Cloud Choices. But before entering into the topic, I would like to present you the communities. So the communities at SOA People. So what's a community? Actually, a community is a group of people coming from all the company that share the same interests in SAP. We can have communities about finance. We do have production. We have maintenance community. Again, sales, cloud, more general, and for instance, supply or warehouse management. So these are the communities we have. The communities are this group of people, but what's the goal of the community? What are we doing with the community? So the community are a global overview of what's the content of the company. The goal is to have a complete overview of the SAP knowledge, the new topics, the new trends that are coming into the SAP ecosystem. We would like also to know where our knowledge resides. Okay, so to know which consultant know what topic. We would like also to share the knowledge per content, per area, group-wide. So the goal is to, when someone is knowing a topic, a very specific topic, is to share that topic to other people, but also receiving the knowledge from each consultant that you are interested in. As a consultant, knowing who should contact, how you should contact for each topic. So with a single point of contact, a single expert that master a domain. Again, about pre-sales, it's good for the pre-sales teams to know who is the expert person in a domain to be able to present the new topic to our customer. And of course, on the other way, when we have a project, it's to do the match between the consultants and the project to have a perfect match between the knowledges and the expectation of the customer. About group-wide knowledge vision, we do have an evolution for all the consultants, and we see with the group-wide knowledge vision the topics in which we have to invest. It's about the same about the group-wide innovation vision. So we do have an innovation team that will explain what are the future topics that are coming into the ecosystem. And of course, next to that, we have the project capitalization. Project capitalization is taking all the experience that we have had on a project and sharing it with all the consultants about the things that the consultant can reuse for the next projects. That's a bit the goal of all the communities. But how does it take place, the communities? So we have different channels of communication. How do we organize ourselves? We have, of course, physical trainings, important to meet physically to discuss the topics, but also online knowledge session. Okay, so during this online knowledge session, the consultants are discovering new topics. We do use Jammer or new name Viva Engage to do the communication. We propose new topic to inform about new trends, and also we do use this tool to raise new question and of course get an answer. So that's a bit how the communities are working and how we are dealing with knowledge management at SOA People. Okay, that was it for the communities. Now we are going to the S4HANA Cloud Choices with the presentation of Tamas.
So, all right, then let's get started. I will share my screen. And then let's talk about S4HANA Cloud choices. So maybe you have seen this slide before. No, this is, let's say, SAP's latest slide on our position in the whole portfolio. If I put on my laser pointer, then you see that Cloud ERP, this is what we are talking about today, is right in the middle. No, so this is the most important part from the portfolio. Actually, we will also touch BTP, which is also positioned very dominantly here. But let's look into the Cloud ERP. What does S4HANA Cloud actually mean? And there is already a good amount of confusion about this. Of course, SAP added it to it by changing its name and positioning multiple times in the last years. So let's check where we are today. So when we talk about S4HANA generally, then it comes in three flavors. Can be public cloud, can be private cloud, or can be on-premise. So when we talk about public cloud, then there is really one way to get this public cloud, which is directly from SAP, and this is what precisely called S4HANA Cloud Public Edition. So this is a system provided by SAP. It's a multi-tenant system. This is what it used to be called before. And yeah, that's quite straightforward. When it comes to private cloud, then there are many ways to get a private cloud system. One option is to get it from SAP. No, then it's called S4HANA Cloud Private Edition, but it could also be provided by a kind of a hosting kind of a company, a specialist, a SAP provider. Now we work with T-Systems. They are the biggest. So I use that example, but there are also some other smaller players. And then, of course, it's also possible to run it on a hyperscaler. So you pick your favorite hyperscaler from Microsoft, from Google, from Amazon. Basically, you install S4HANA there, and then it's considered a private cloud system. What makes these three private? What's the difference to public? That it's your own system. It's as a customer, you have your own instance. You are not sharing some kind of multi-tenant environment in the public cloud, but you have your own. And you will see having your own means you will have more flexibility. You can make your more decisions more independently comparing to the public cloud. So in all three private cloud options, there is the hyperscaler option, which means that you can decide which hyperscaler you want, or even if you want hyperscaler, because for example, here in the SAP option, you could choose for an SAP data center. Of course, you could choose for a T-Systems data center. But if you, in this option, obviously, we are hyperscaler. And this is already a little bit of confusion with the names, because hyperscalers are, of course, public cloud providers, public infrastructure cloud providers. But from an S4HANA point of view, basically, you install the software yourself. So then you are not using the public cloud version of S4HANA, but let's say you will see it's basically the same software as what you would use on-prem, but then you install somewhere else. In terms of service, there is also a big difference. In the first option, it's serviced by SAP and the partner. It's always important to add to it. There is a whole SLA which describes what SAP is going to do, but it's not everything. It's quite some, a lot of services, but still not the full coverage. Even in the technical area, there is the need for partners to play a role there. And then in the other options, there is no SAP service, so it's typically by a partner, or of course the customers. If they are able, they can do it themselves. Now, these first two things, whether public cloud or whether private cloud, fall under the umbrella of RISE with SAP. I will talk more about that, but this is basically an offering from SAP to help customers go to the S4hana, to go to the cloud, public or private, and it also has few other components to it to help customers on the way to S4hana, some tools and services. And then a few months ago, very recently, a few weeks, few months ago, SAP announced Grow with SAP, which is another offering, something like RISE, but the difference is that Grow is specially dedicated for what we call net new names, so customers which don't have an SAP system yet. Now, either they have no ERP at all, or they have another ERP, non-SAP ERP, and they want to make a fresh start with an SAP S4hana cloud system. No, so I'm introducing these terms so that you know what they are referring to. Then in the rest of the presentation, I will compare these options. So you have here public, private, via T-systems. As I imagine, you could also imagine other smaller players, the hyperscalers or on-premise. And then I will compare all of them along these comparison criteria. So I will talk about the scope, functional scope, what can actually the system do, the releases, how often it gets updates, new innovations, user experience, how you interact with the system project, meaning does it need a greenfield, can it be done a brownfield, or what other options are possible for the given flavor. And then we will talk about integration. Integration is always interesting. Integration with other SAP systems, with non-SAP systems. Development, also a very important area. How much can you develop, or what are the techniques available for development? In also modification. So difference between development and modification is that modification means that you are changing the SAP standard code line. It's not a good idea, but sometimes customers want to do this. And development would be more, let's say, custom development on top of the standard code line. Then I will talk about license roughly, but what are the different ways of licensing these solutions, and what is the underlying infrastructure. So in this presentation, we go through all these aspects, and now let's start with the scope. In terms of scope, we can say that the public cloud is somehow more limited than the rest. You see that the rest, they are pretty the same. So in terms of full scope, and what does it mean full? I will talk about that. But the public cloud offers less, and that's important to understand. No, so sometimes SAP talks about deployment options. Know that these are deployment options. The deployment option if you want to be on premise or in a public cloud or in a private cloud. It's more than that, because even the scope is different. No? So what you are able to do with the software is different. It's not simply what kind of cloud it is. So why we have this difference in scope? So let me start with the positioning of S4hana public cloud. No? Now I'm talking about public cloud, so the first flavor. It's ideal for companies which want to standardize based on industry best practices. They are probably smaller companies with growth ambitions, and they enjoy the innovation which public cloud could bring to them. Now, I will give some nuance to this, but this is a good starting point. So what kind of customers fall into that? New customers, who have no SAP legacy, they have a cloud mindset. This client mindset I link to this idea of standardizing on industry best practices. So it's best for companies which are willing to work with standard best practices, and that either means because you don't have anything yet. So you go to this best practices, and then you are really enjoying to work with the recommendations from SAP. Or if you do come from an ERP system, then you are willing to give up some of that special customization development you may have, because you really believe in working with the standard. High growth, it's good because, okay, that's the whole nature of cloud, no? That you can easily grow with it. For existing customers, no, I already mentioned that they need to have the cloud mindset, but it's probably a good one for subsidiaries, new acquisitions, and in case of divestments, no? So maybe not for the whole organization to start with, but for parts. And then they were willing to standardize. And as public cloud can only be implemented in greenfield, that means they have to be ready for a greenfield project. No, there is no other way. So what are typical scenarios? One is what SAP calls finance-led ERP, which is more than finance. No, you see lead to cash, source to pay, quarter reports, so let's say whole procurement, everything. Another typical scenario is a couple of industries where the public cloud is the strongest, service-centric industries, product-centric industries. These are the best examples. And then the third way, now the third scenario, which is a good match, this two-tier ERP, what SAP calls two-tier ERP, which is basically when the system is implemented in a subsidiary or as a central service function. So it links to this customer profiles. No, so just to summarize this right side, because this is always the most confusing part. So it's ideal for companies which could fit into these processes. No, this is what they need. No, and not a lot more. Or if they need more, then they fit into these countries, its industries, or in a two-tier ERP setup. These are the sweet spots of the public cloud. And so I started to say that the scope is not full. So what do I mean with that? And I like to explain that with this metaphor about the pizza. So imagine a pizza as a full circle, something which is complete. And for ERP customers, they often see their current ERP system, ECC, as a full pizza. They say, we have everything in the system. Then what does S4HANA actually mean? Now, S4HANA on-prem, and now I'm talking about prem, is also a full pizza, but in a different way. On one hand, there are simplifications. SAP consciously made the choice not to have everything included in S4HANA because they said that sometimes there are multiple solutions for the same thing, so that is not necessary in the future anymore in their mind. There are some old techniques which are not so much used anymore can be scrapped from the system. This way S4HANA becomes simpler, easier to implement, easier to manage. So SAP made these choices when they created S4HANA, and they basically force customers to work with modern approaches, and some old techniques are simply not available. Now, this is what we call simplification. Then there are gaps in S4HANA. There are parts which are actually not there yet. And for those areas, SAP provides a compatibility scope. So basically, if there is no solution for a given area in S4HANA yet, then you can use still ECC, a part of ECC for that we call compatibility scope. These compatibilities are available until the end of 2025. And SAP made the promise that before that, they will offer the real new solution. Example is HR. For years, there was no real HR solution in S4HANA. Why not? Because, of course, SuccessFactors is the strategic product. But for customers which really wanted to stay on-prem with an HR solution, they could use the compatibility pack. Even today, you can use it until the end of 25. But as we already know, SAP already announced HCM for s4hana, so a real new solution. So then this compatibility scope is not needed anymore, and then they can go to the new solution. Now, and for all of these compatibility scope, this is going to happen. SAP will come up with a new solution if they haven't done yet. And then we have yearly releases. So on an on-prem world, each year there is a new release. So this pizza is actually growing each year. So this is an on-prem pizza. And now we look into the public cloud and explain why it's not a full pizza. I picture it with pizza slices. No? So in the public cloud, you don't have the full pizza, only some slices, so not everything is there. But then some of these slices are actually bigger than on-prem. No, and this is what we call the focused cloud scope. No, so in some areas, take for example professional services, what you get in the public cloud is actually more than what you get on-prem. And on top of that, of course, the public cloud also has releases, so these pizza slices are growing as well. Now, the last thing I wanted to add in this discussion about the scope is Signavio. This is, of course, not part of S4HANA. No, this is another thing, another actually suite of products where you see the different solutions from process insights, process intelligence, and so on. And why I'm bringing this up? Because, I mean, this is really a good tool where you can analyze your processes as a customer. You can do process mining, process analytics, process modeling, and so on to find out how your processes are performing, how you compare to peers, what are the best practices, the gap between best practices and your processes, and so on. So it helps you to make this choice about what you actually need in S4, whichever flavor, and how you can gradually, iteratively improve your processes. All right, let's move to the second aspect of the comparison, which is the releases. So you see that in the public cloud, there is a certain release policy, I will explain. And in the other options, as a customer, you are flexible. You can decide yourself how often. Of course, you have to stay within the maintenance of the software, so you cannot just sit on it forever. But you decide when you do this upgrades, when you introduce new innovations. But in the public, and this slide is about the public edition, there is a new policy there, which is that there are two main releases in February and in August. So only twice a year. It used to be four, but now it's only twice a year. But when SAP moves from 4 to 2, that doesn't mean that they slow down, because there will be continuous release of updates, no, on the system, and those features are toggled and can optionally be turned on by customers. No, so I think this is an improvement. And then these monthly features are supposed to be non-disruptive. No? Now, if we go to the area of user experience, then in a public cloud environment, you work with Fiori, and in the other ones, you have your all the options. You can use Fiori, but you can still work with the SAP GUI, even techniques like WebDim Pro, screen personas. You want to use the business client. So you have many options in these ones, and it's up to you to decide on your user experience implementation or even the rollout plan. But in the public cloud, it is Fiori. So in the public cloud, there are a lot of really new nice things there. There is, of course, what is not even on my slide is SAP Start, which is in beta or some, I forgot now the exact name. So, but it's not released yet to customers. And it will be kind of a central access point for your S4hana cloud system and also other SAP cloud systems combined, SuccessFactors and other things. So it's coming later this year. What is already there is SAP Mobile Start, which is like a native mobile app where you can access your S4 and other SAP content on mobile devices. There is a new theme, so just a look and feel for Fiori. Embedded guidance and support is now available. So there's a lot of new things. I could talk about, collaboration now with Teams and then even Google, and many things are coming in to S4HANA Cloud. Just like the new homepage, which I think if you know the Fiori Launchpad, I think most people know it as, like a bunch of tiles, not like tiles, the whole screen full of tiles. Now, if you look at this new homepage, it's much nicer. It's not so boring as it's only tiles. You have task to dos on the top. You still have, of course, tiles if you want, but different ones in shape and form and functionality. You also can have these cards, which are richer, and then you click on these and then you go further in the details. So if you work with the public cloud, then this is the way it looks. This is your user experience, not only Fiori, and in other options, it's up to you as a customer to decide. So you can even decide that, okay, I don't want any Fiori. I stay with the GUI, and only on few cases when it's a really must, then I will use the Fiori. Of course, that's not a good idea. No, that's not the recommendation, but technically it's possible. No, there is no, it's not a must to use Fiori. It's only a very good idea. But then you have the question in those projects of how you introduce Fiori, at what space, in what methodology, and that's a discussion on its own. In public, there is no discussion. It is Fiori. Now, in terms of projects, as I mentioned already, the public cloud edition can only be implemented as greenfield. That's it. So you need to have all the workshops to discuss with the business about what you want to use. Here we talk about fit to standard workshops, in the language of Activate. And in the other options, so in private cloud, T-Systems, hyperscalers, and on-prem, you have all options, meaning greenfield, brownfield. Some people talk about bluefield, which is kind of in between, mix and match, whatever, all these different techniques. There is one thing I want to point out here, which is quite a new thing, that now SAP provides a baseline activation service that's specific for public cloud, where they activate 75 scope items in 4 weeks. And you see the timeline here of how these 4 weeks are spent. This is quite strong, to get so much scope items up and running in 4 weeks. And you see that it's not just technical enablement, but all what needs to be done to actually get them really working, including master data and testing and so on. But please don't confuse it with the full project. So this is just a kind of a quick start. And then afterwards, additional scope, geographies, legal entities, blah, 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 are still needed. So this is just the beginning of the project, and then the rest is still up to probably the partner to do. Now, in terms of integration, in the public cloud, you have to work with the new techniques, new technologies, and in the other flavors, you have all options. So if you want, you can send text files from system A to system B, and you can do all the crazy bad practices are possible. Of course, you are still advised to work in a modern way for the well-known benefits, but nobody restricts you from doing all the bad practices if you want. So in the cloud, of course, in the public cloud, no, you work with the APIs, which are whitelisted by SAP. You can find them in the API Business Hub, which just got a new name, I think, last week, and I forgot the new name now, some business acceleration something. But the website is still the same, no, api.sap.com. And yeah, you work with the APIs, and then of course you have the side-by-side extensibility option. And okay, here we are talking about extensibility, but what I want, which is more the next topic, but what I want to emphasize is the integration suite, which is of course there, no? So CPI or SAP Cloud Integration, which is there for the integration purposes. Next topic is development, and that also relates to the integration, and that's why I mentioned ABAP Cloud also for the integration, because now in the public cloud there is the possibility to do development, and you could use that development approach called ABAP Cloud also to create new interfaces. So imagine you need an API which is not there. You can either ask SAP to provide it, or you can build it yourself if you want. That's a choice. Pros and cons. So this is my link to the topic of development and modification. So when it comes to modification, that's quite an easy to explain. If you are in a public cloud, no modifications. You are in a multi-tenant environment, so logically, as one of the customers, you cannot change the system which is used by more customers. And in other options, it is possible. Not recommended, but possible. Now, when it comes to development, then the big news is that there is now a development system also for public cloud. No, it was not there before. I think was since October last year. Before, for a couple of years, you only had two systems, no, the quality and the production system. Yeah, there is the CBC, the central business configuration, but that's not like a runtime system. That's more for a central configuration, as it says. But now there is a development system, so you really have a three-tier landscape where you can move development from dev to queue, from queue to prod. But in this development system, you have to work with the modern ABAP techniques, ABAP cloud. So it's not the traditional ABAP stack where you could, directly select star from the database tables and so on. No, you have to work with the ABAP cloud technique. And when it comes to development or extending the systems, then actually there are three options. One is the key user extensibility. So even as a key user, you can change the system, and then, to be honest, not bad. No, you can change the screens, but you can even work on a CTS views. You can add fields to the database as a key user. So actually quite some, and even some limited business logic can be added there. So it's more powerful than I think what most people think. Then when it comes to a developer, the real now developers, then you can work in this new development system, no? Which is call it embedded Steampunk or S4hana Cloud OOP environment officially. So which is now part of your S4 system. And then of course the other option, which we always had, is to do development on BTP and integrate it with the S4HANA Cloud via the public APIs. So yeah, this is not new. Of course, the services are always improving and the techniques are improving on BTP, but the idea is not new. And the idea of having a cloud OOP environment, that's still that's since October last year. Then I have a more detailed slide, which I'm not going to explain now, but yeah, same what I explained as a nice comparison, no? Just because as a customer, you will always have to decide, are you going to use all three or when you use what? Now, if we talk about the side by side, so the development on BTP, then okay, this is, let's say, the standard overview slide of what BTP is. That could be another big presentation, so I'm not going to go very deep in that. But yeah, you hopefully you know that you can use BTP for developing apps, automation, integration, the whole data topic, of course, HANA and Analytics Cloud and all these, of course, data sphere nowadays, and AI services. What is something new? Is build. That could be again another presentation what build is, but build has the three parts where you build apps, where you build process automations, and where you build kind of portal like work zones. And now these are also added into the RISE package, which I mentioned before. So in the end, for developments, there are actually quite some options. So there is this low code option via build, where the promise of the tool is that you don't need to write code or just little, and then you can build apps, process automations, and portals, as I mentioned. But there are various pro code options, so for real professional developers. And yeah, this is another big area to discuss which tool is the right tool for which scenario. But certainly, regardless of which S4HANA flavor you choose, you can always use BTP, and you are recommended, of course, to use BTP for development. Now, my last aspects for the comparison is license and infrastructure. So let's talk about license. So S4HANA Cloud, whether public or private, as part of RISE, they come with a subscription. No, that's the whole idea of RISE. So you pay per FUE, so this full-time user equivalent, which it's something like users, but there is a formula. How you calculate the full-time FUEs, and then you license based on these FUEs. If you go to now, for example, T-Systems, as we work, they can offer all kinds of license ways. If you go to a hyperscaler, then from an SAP license point of view, this is the same as running it on premise, meaning you buy the normal perpetual S4HANA license, and just the question is where you install the system. If you install it in your own data center or in a hyperscaler data center, but from an SAP license point of view, they are the same. And infrastructure, that's would be obvious by now, that if you are in the public cloud, then yeah, you buy a service from SAP, so you are not deciding on the infrastructure. That's completely managed by SAP. If you do choose private, so you have your own system, then you can choose. Do you want to use it in an SAP data center or which hyperscaler? If you work with T-Systems, then you choose between T-Systems or a hyperscaler. If you go on a hyperscaler, then you are on a hyperscaler. That's logical. And if you are on-prem, you are on-prem. So with that, I quickly run through all the options. I hope it helped you to get an idea of what the main differences are. And then there is just one last point I want to cover is how to get started as a customer with the public cloud, which was the main focus here. And but before that, as a summary, I added a slide about RISE, which I believe I covered this part about what cloud ERP is. We talked about the BTP, as the platform. We talked about the business process intelligence a little bit with my Signavio short explanation. There are additional tools which you get in this RISE package. There's a whole list of small tools, and the business networks, like the logistics network and the purchasing collaboration networks. So all this is part of RISE, and under one license. So how do you get started with the public cloud? The process is the following, and what SAP calls a digital discovery. The idea is that before starting the project, already in a pre-sales phase, customers they have to go through this discovery phase, and there is a tool to support that. This is called the DDA, the Digital Discovery Assessment Tool. It's provided by SAP, where customers, probably together with their partner, surely involving SAP, can define what they expect in their future system, and then this system can confirm if it's possible in the public cloud or no. It's some pizza slices are missing in the public cloud, so they need to go for a private edition or whichever else. So this is a very good exercise to analyze the needs of the customer and guide the decision. Okay, which flavor is the right one for the customer. So yeah, we can have all these discussions based on I showed before the different aspects, and then finally this is a tool which makes it really concrete, and based on that they can actually make the buying decision. So with that, I finished my story. I have just one slide about a reference we have. It's a very nice reference in the public cloud, but okay, I just put it here as for your information. And with that, I finished my story and ready for your questions. So I will unshare my screen, and we can go to some Q&A.